This is the Bots and Bosses podcast. The only show where artificial intelligence, emerging tech, and digital disruption meet real world business. Presented by technologist, author, and no-nonsense navigator of the future, John Binks. It's Tech Talk without the jargon. Now, let's deep dive.
Welcome to the Bots and Bosses podcast, presented by John Binks.
Hey everyone, it's really great to be here.
This is episode 44.
And we've got an incredibly wild one for you today.
And originally aired on June 14th, 2026.
I still kind of can't believe the timeline we're living in right now.
I mean, right.
Yeah.
Usually, when you talk about enterprise technology, you are dealing with incredibly predictable roadmaps.
Oh, totally. Very boring stuff, usually.
Exactly. You license some software, you integrate it into your daily workflow, and, as long as you pay the monthly invoice, the servers just keep humming along.
Right. It's a stable, reliable, completely unremarkable transaction.
But just 48 hours ago, so
Yeah.
on Friday, June 12th, that entire illusion of stability just completely shattered.
Yeah, it really did.
Out of nowhere, the United States government forced Anthropic to completely shut down access to their most advanced frontier AI models, Fable 5 and Mythos 5.
Which is just an unprecedented move. I mean, we have never seen a government forcibly unplug a commercial enterprise tool of this magnitude overnight.
Before we get into the exact timeline of what went down, I want to make a quick note for you listening.
Good call.
The sources and the policy analyses we are pulling from for this deep dive today, they contain some pretty intense politically charged commentary.
Very charged.
Yeah, we're dealing with aggressive debates over the Trump administration's actions, arguments about government competence, and obviously massive geopolitical tensions between the U.S. and China.
Right. The stakes are huge.
So we need to be clear that we are absolutely not taking sides or endorsing any of those political viewpoints.
Exactly.
Our goal is strictly to neutrally report the facts, the technical realities, and the industry reactions exactly as they appear in the source material, just so you have a complete picture of the landscape.
Yeah, because the mechanics of this decision are honestly fascinating enough without us injecting our own politics into it.
So true. So let's look at how this actually played out.
Let's do it.
At 5:21 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, Anthropic received a direct export control directive from the U.S. government.
The classic Friday night news dump time.
Right. A literal letter from Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick directly to Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei.
And the contents of that letter were just explosive.
Yeah. The directive suspended access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 for any foreign national anywhere in the world.
And the phrasing of that directive is what really triggered the immediate fallout here.
How so?
Well, it did not say, ban access in foreign countries. It explicitly said any foreign national.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That includes foreign nationals working for American companies inside the United States.
Wait, really? So it even applied to Anthropic's own employees who just happened to be on visas.
Exactly. Their own engineers.
Think about the logistical nightmare of that for a SaaS provider. I mean, Anthropic couldn't just write a quick script to cleanly separate user access based on citizenship in a few hours.
No, of course not. You can't just flip a switch for that.
They didn't have the infrastructure in place to instantly verify the passports of individual downstream enterprise users in real time.
Right. The architecture just doesn't exist for that kind of granular identity-based blocking.
So to ensure they were legally compliant and avoid massive federal penalties, they essentially had to drop the nuclear option.
They had no other choice.
They pulled the plug for every single customer on Earth.
Which is just, it's mind-blowing. And it forces us to look at the trigger. Like, why did the government do this on a Friday night?
Right. What was the catalyst?
The reporting indicates the catalyst was a jailbreak discovered by security researchers at Amazon.
Ah, this is the Project Glasswing thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Project Glasswing. And Anthropic obviously pushed back heavily against the government's framing of this event.
Because the government made it sound like the end of the world.
Right. Anthropic pointed out that this wasn't some catastrophic failure where the model's entire safety architecture just collapsed.
So what did the researchers actually do?
They essentially just found a narrow vulnerability where they prompted the model to read a specific code base and fix some underlying software flaws.
I want to pause on that for a second because the whole concept of fixing a flaw being a national security threat Sounds completely counterintuitive.
It does sound weird on the surface, yeah.
But if an AI model can rapidly analyze thousands of lines of code to find a hidden vulnerability and patch it, a bad actor can use that exact same capability, right?
Exactly. They can find the vulnerability and exploit it before the patch is ever written.
And that's what the industry calls a zero-day exploit.
Precisely. A zero-day exploit means the software vendor has 0 days to fix the problem because the hackers have already weaponized it.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah. In the government's eyes, a tool that can autonomously hunt for 0 days is a weapon of mass disruption.
But Anthropic had a defense for this, didn't they?
They did. Their defense relies on this concept of defense in depth.
Okay, what does that mean?
They argue that perfect jailbreak resistance is a complete myth. Like, no system is impenetrable.
Right, someone will always find a way in.
Exactly. That's why they enforce a 30-day customer data retention policy, so they can retroactively monitor the logs and detect those kinds of adversarial threats.
They also pointed out that OpenAI's GPT 5.5 has the exact same code analyzing capabilities, right?
It absolutely does.
So if the model is just doing what other models already do, reading code and identifying flaws, it feels like the government is banning a specific brand of wrench from every hardware store just because a burglar used it to break a lock,
That's a great way to put it.
while leaving all the other identical wrenches sitting right there on the shelf.
I'd actually take that analogy a step further.
Oh,
Yeah, not only did they ban the wrench, but they essentially declared the entire hardware store a matter of critical national security.
that is a massive paradigm shift.
Huge. The government no longer views frontier AI as consumer software. It is being reclassified as strategic infrastructure.
Like the power grid or something.
Exactly like the power grid or even nuclear enrichment facility.
Wow.
If a tool materially increases cyber, biological, or intelligence risks, the government feels an absolute obligation to intervene, regardless of how blunt the execution might be.
And that blunt execution is exactly what sparked this massive wave of industry backlash over the weekend.
Oh, people were furious.
I was reading the reaction from Katie Missouri, the CEO of Luda Security, and she brought up this brilliant concept called the cybersecurity paradox.
Yes, I read that too. It's a really crucial point.
She looked at the prompt using the Amazon jailbreak and pointed out that this is the exact same type of prompting cyber defenders use every single day to keep our systems safe.
Right, because advanced models are currently the most effective tools we have for identifying vulnerabilities and accelerating defensive patching.
So by imposing an incredibly blunt overnight restriction, the government actively kneecaps the good actors.
Exactly. The defenders are suddenly locked out of their best tools while the adversaries simply pivot.
Right, a hostile nation state isn't going to stop hacking just because Anthropic's API is down.
No, they will just spin up an open source model or use a leaked, unregulated foreign alternative.
It seems completely counterproductive.
It really does. Chris McGuire over at the Council on Foreign Relations called it out as sheer policy incoherence.
Policy incoherence, that's a strong phrase.
It is. He argued that while export controls are historically a crucial tool for extending its strategic lead, dropping an across-the-board ban without any warning or transition period is basically domestic self-sabotage.
And the incoherence is really magnified by the timeline here.
Oh, the hypocrisy is wild.
Just a few weeks ago, the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, the OSTP, went on the offensive against the New York Times.
Right, I remember this.
The Times had reported that President Trump signed an executive order to oversee all new AI models, and the OSTP publicly criticized the report.
They claimed that level of sweeping government oversight would have a massive chilling effect on innovation.
Fast forward a few weeks, and they enact a measure that is arguably far more severe and disruptive than what was initially rumored.
Yeah, you really can't make this stuff up.
But, let me push back on the industry outrage for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
Critics are calling this cartoonish and maximally invasive. But if adversarial actors really can use these frontier models to uncover zero-day exploits in critical infrastructure instantly,
Which they can.
doesn't the government have a legitimate responsibility to pull the emergency brake, even if it creates temporary market chaos?
The government definitely has a mandate to protect national security. Nobody is arguing that.
Right.
The frustration from the industry isn't about the existence of the break. It's about the lack of an operational dashboard.
Okay, unpack that.
They need transparent technical thresholds.
And by thresholds, you mean the government needs a clear line in the sand, for instance. If a model exceeds a certain amount of computing power or hits specific benchmark capabilities,
Yes.
then the developers know in advance that strict export rules will apply.
That is exactly the missing piece. Without clear, predefined standards or pre-release coordination, the U.S. government is effectively signaling to the rest of the world that American technology is operationally fragile and politically volatile.
Which is terrible for business.
Terribly. You cannot build global reliance on a system if the provider might randomly unplug it based on an opaque security concern.
If you are enjoying our podcast, please click like and follow our show.
We really do appreciate all the support from you guys listening.
And remember to tell your friends about our show.
It makes a huge difference. So getting back to the fallout.
Yeah, the irony of this massive government overreach is that the very company being crushed by it, Anthropic, spent the last 2 years aggressively lobbying for it.
It's the ultimate be careful what you wish for paradox.
It really is. Anthropic built their entire corporate identity on safetyism.
They were definitely the loudest voices in the room pushing for stringent AI regulation.
They were publicly demanding that the government grant itself the power to block unsafe deployments before they could cause harm.
And now, industry figures are heavily criticizing the arrogance of that original stance.
Yeah, Sarah Hooker and Jeremy Howard both pointed this out.
Right. They highlighted that Anthropic operated under the assumption that they were uniquely responsible enough to handle this technology.
And that the regulations would only ever be used to police their competitors.
Exactly. There is this 3-panel cartoon circulating online right now that captures the mood perfectly.
Oh, I saw this. Describe it for the listeners.
So the first panel shows Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei, urgently begging for regulation because the AI is simply too dangerous for the world.
Right.
The second panel is Donald Trump casually saying, okay, it's banned.
And at the third panel.
The third panel is Dario looking completely apoplectic, screaming about how unfair the ban is.
It's hilarious, but, the reality for the company is an absolute disaster, especially internally.
Oh, internal morale must be non-existent right now.
Look at the talent pool. Anthropic employs some of the most brilliant minds in the world, people like Andrej Karpathy, who are in the U.S. on EB-1 visas.
For those who don't know, EB-1 visas are specifically designated for individuals with extraordinary ability.
Right. And because they are foreign nationals, under this new directive, they are legally barred from even interacting with the models they are supposed to be building.
It's absurd. You literally have top-tier researchers sitting at their desks in San Francisco, legally prohibited from compiling their own code or testing their own algorithms.
It breaks the entire development cycle.
Completely breaks it.
And the financial contagion is staggering. The sources are heavily speculating about Anthropic's planned IPO.
The IPO is definitely in jeopardy now.
If they lose 25% of their global market share overnight because they legally cannot serve foreign customers, the math changes drastically.
Yeah, they might no longer be a trillion-dollar company.
We are seeing commentators compare this to the 1987 Black Monday crash, suggesting this could be the pin that pops the entire AI valuation bubble.
The capital expenditure required to train these massive models is astronomical.
Billions of dollars.
Right. If the path to monetization is suddenly blocked by unpredictable retroactive export controls, venture capital is going to dry up overnight.
I used the wrench analogy earlier, but looking at Anthropic's specific role in this, it feels like they built this massive, impenetrable fortress.
Yeah.
Handed the government the master keys while screaming, "You have to keep the bad guys out," and then acted totally shocked when the government used those keys to lock them out of their own castle.
That's a brutal way to phrase it, but it's accurate. Building on that, they didn't just hand over the keys, they built the entire castle on leased land.
Oh, that's good.
The government just abruptly reminded them who owns the deed.
Wow. Yeah.
You simply cannot beg for serious federal intervention in national security matters and expect the resulting policy to be elegant, nuanced, and commercially convenient for your quarterly earnings.
It just doesn't work that way.
Their core safety marketing strategy backfired into an existential crisis.
So if you're a CIO listening to this right now, building your enterprise architecture, you have to be wondering how this geopolitical drama impacts your downstream tools.
It impacts everything.
We are seeing the emergence of a concept that Brian Zhao called KYC for AI.
Know your customer, but applied to artificial intelligence.
Exactly. And the logistics of KYC for AI are almost impossible to implement at scale.
Let's talk about how that actually works, because it's a total nightmare.
You take a specialized legal AI tool, something like Harvey, which law firms use to draft contracts.
Right, Harvey's super popular.
But Harvey doesn't build its own underlying frontier model. It relies on Anthropic's Fable 5 through an API endpoint.
And an API is basically just a digital bridge that allows Harvey's software to talk to Anthropic's servers.
Right. So under this new paradigm, how does Harvey prove to Anthropic that the individual paralegal typing a prompt into their iPad in London or New York is actually a U.S. citizen?
You can't. You can't casually pass a verified U.S. passport through a standard text-based API request.
If this policy sticks, downstream enterprise tools might literally need to build massive identity verification systems just to submit a single prompt.
It creates a complete chilling effect on innovation across the entire ecosystem.
And the sources highlight that companies like OpenAI and Google DeepMind now have zero incentive to release their next generation models, like an Opus 4.8 or a GPT 5.5.
Why would they? From a risk management perspective, releasing a new model right now is a huge liability.
Because of the precedent this just set.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If someone finds a narrow jailbreak on a new OpenAI model tomorrow, they risk the government dropping a global ban on them too.
So the safest move is to keep the technology locked in the research lab until the regulatory environment stabilizes.
Which means progress grinds to a halt.
This weekend was a deafening wake-up call for the rest of the world.
I can only imagine the panic in international boardrooms.
Just imagine you were a hospital administrator in Europe. You spent the last 18 months migrating your critical triage or diagnostic workflows to run on Fable 5.
Millions of euros invested.
You go to sleep on Friday, and you wake up Saturday morning to find your hospital's critical services entirely disrupted.
Not because of a server outage.
Right. Not a glitch, but because of a political decision made thousands of miles away in Washington, D.C.
That scenario highlights the definition of a sovereign vulnerability.
Sovereign vulnerability.
Tom Tugendhat, a British politician, framed this shift perfectly. He noted that national sovereignty in the 21st century is now more about code than cannons.
Code than cannons. That is a striking reality.
It really is. This event is going to aggressively accelerate the global push for sovereign AI.
Meaning every country is going to want their own.
Exactly. Countries in Europe, as well as China and the Middle East, are going to pour massive state resources into developing regional providers and open weight models.
Let's define open weight for a second, because it's distinct from just general open source software.
Right, it's a bit different.
With an open weight model, the developers released the fully trained parameters, the actual brain of the AI, so anyone can download it and run it locally on their own servers, even if the original training data isn't shared.
Which means a foreign government or a massive enterprise can just download the weights, run the model on their own sovereign hardware, and never have to rely on an American API connection again.
They bypass the U.S. entirely.
They have to. They cannot afford to let their critical infrastructure remain subjected to a foreign government's kill switch.
So bringing it all together, if you are an enterprise leader making tech procurement decisions today, relying on a single American frontier model without a massive fallback plan isn't just risky anymore.
No, it is officially financially irresponsible.
The ultimate business lesson from this entire fiasco is that AI adoption has rapidly matured out of the experimentation phase.
We are now dealing with critical infrastructure architecture. Multi-model resilience is no longer optional. Vendor risk reviews, robust fallback workflows, open weight hedging. If you are relying entirely on a single API from a single company, your business continuity is currently hanging by a thread.
Wow.
AI availability now belongs on the boardroom risk agenda, right alongside cybersecurity, geopolitical risk, and supply chain resilience.
It's clear that AI policy has moved permanently out of the think tanks, out of the theoretical white papers, and into an era of brutal retroactive enforcement.
Brutal is the right word.
The world just learned a very hard lesson. Dependence on AI means dependence on technology, which ultimately means dependence on foreign policy.
That realization fundamentally changes the calculus for every single developer, procurement officer, and CEO on the planet.
Which leaves us with a fascinating and frankly terrifying thought to ponder.
I'm ready for it.
If access to the most cutting-edge artificial intelligence in the world is now going to be restricted by physical borders and citizenship, creating what some of our sources are calling a new digital iron curtain.
A digital iron curtain.
Yeah. Are we entering an era where the ceiling of your own intellectual and economic potential is permanently capped, not by your talent, not by your work ethic, but simply by what passport you happen to hold?
That is a really heavy question to leave everyone with.
Today's show was human-inspired and powered with AI assistance.
Thanks for diving into this madness with us today.
Be sure to visit us, www.botsandbosses.com.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.
Remember, the bots are getting smarter, but you're still the boss.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Bots and Bosses podcast. Remember, the bots are getting smarter, but you're still the boss. For now, see you next time.